be selfish a little bit about, your career and what you want. And traditionally, women haven't done that, but be
Hmm.
selfish. Find your goal and be selfish about achieving it, right? That
Yeah.
sometimes you might have to say no to social gatherings or going out or doing certain tasks at work, at home. But ultimately, if you choose a goal, you want to reach there. You got to make choices that will help you reach there. And I'm not saying totally ignore everything. I'm just saying take more conscious choices and be a little selfish to drive your growth and career.
Welcome to CEO, the podcast that celebrates women who are leading with impact and redefining success. I'm your host, Sophie, and each week we'll bring you powerful stories and practical insights to empower and fuel your own leadership journey. This week, Saumya Vardhan joins us. She's a seasoned leader in engineering technical program and business operations, recently serving as the Director of Digital Transformation Office at Yahoo, where she led large-scale digital transformation and modernisation initiatives across the company. With over 17 years of global experience, Saumya has excelled in overseeing complex cloud, AI and identity programs, managing sizable budgets and guiding cross-functional teams to deliver strategic impact. Her work has consistently driven operational efficiencies and optimised technology investments across organisations. In addition to her corporate career, she is also a certified Vedic astrologer, numerologist and Vastu practitioner, and the founder at shapuja.com, India's pioneering online spirituality platform, which received international recognition and was described as the Uber of gods, featured in Forbes, New York Magazine and CNBC. Today we spoke around her childhood, being an entrepreneur, and what differentiates you as a female leader in the world today. Let's get going. So welcome, Saumya Vardhan. I'm really excited to have you here today. I know we've spoken so many times around your journey, and I'm really hoping that's going to inspire so many other people. So yeah, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie, for giving me this opportunity. And then, for you and I to have a discussion on some of the topics we were already discussing offline. And thanks for inviting me so we can, really share those thoughts in detail and spread the word around. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So let's dive in. I'd love to give everyone a little bit of an understanding of yourself, your background. So are you able to share a little bit around your journey into technology and leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. So before I even get started on that, I do want to give a caveat that I have a quite a breadth of experience and length of experience combined together. My background is like a cocktail of experience with different ingredients of management consulting. I worked in, tech and strategic management consulting in London and in US, plus entrepreneurship, having launched my own venture. And then now doing senior executive level leadership roles with large scale organizations. So that's something where I felt like each of those areas of my life kind of combined into those bigger experience. At that time, I never realized it, but I think that cocktail became like with different ingredients. I learned different things from these areas, and I can talk a little bit more in detail about how my journey started, right? And I can talk a little bit from my childhood because it really stems from there as well.
Yeah, perfect. Well, why don't we dive into that a little bit then around, your childhood, how you were brought up and what got you where you are today?
So, Sophie, I grew up in a household where everybody loved mathematics, right? No matter what grades I get in other subjects, no one cared. My grandmom didn't care. My parents didn't care. Math, I just needed to get like good grades and I was fine. Like, that's all it was. What it did was like really made me analytical in thinking and, just being more creative from numbers perspective. And secondly, another key area from my childhood is that I grew up in an aviation family. I say that, my father was in airline industry and, he set up few airlines for India. So I saw and I grew up loving aircrafts and I saw the other side of aviation. We only see it like, okay, you're going to a destination for holiday, our flight prices and, what is our rate connection and things like that. Whereas on the other side, I learned like, how technical that industry is, what it takes to really run one flight on time. It's a huge amount of effort. There's so much collaboration. not just within, your city, but across the country, continent, wherever you're going. So it's a very detailed process, and it's a very tech heavy industry as well, right? Every aircraft to function correctly with everybody's life on board, right, takes a lot. It's security, it's regulatory, it's technology, it's operations, it's management, and also customer experience, right? Plus a little bit of branding. Everything gets combined into making this big machine work, right? And for you to have a great experience when you're traveling. So those are some of the key things that I sort of grew up with. And that helped me define and appreciate both technology as well as management and operations. So that's how it started. And I'll just briefly cover, in terms of my background. So I started, so given mathematics, I went into studying statistics. At that time, it was so boring, just learning dry statistical models. And, I never could understand that why would like somebody use these boring mathematical models? Only when I came to the real world, realizing the big tech industry, how, for such large scale products and services, they have to use certain models and analysis using these statistical tools. That's when I truly understood years later, but it was a little late where I was like, okay, the subject was too dry. But I really enjoyed just learning the mathematical side of it. Went to UK after that, did my, my post graduation degrees, followed by working in tech and M&A side of management consulting with Ernst Young KPMG. And then a personal incident happened, which I'll talk about probably later on in the podcast. And I decided to launch my own venture into, a spirituality industry where I felt there's a need for vetted services across into a very non-traditional model. So, really went from a management consultant to something which is very, very traditional, but creating value in that industry. So I started shubpuja.com, my own venture for vetted astrologers, numerologists, even like feng shui or vastu consultants, and then Indian traditional ceremonies all under one platform where you could get it online. And at that time, it was a very novel, innovative concept. Nobody had heard of it before, that you can get these services online, more so for Indian spirituality services. And I think I was humbled to be covered by New York Times and LA Times, CNBC, everywhere. They call it Uber of Gods, my venture, which
Love
is
that.
which was quite catchy. And after that, I moved to Silicon Valley, where I realized that scale is the biggest thing which I missed in my startup. Then I was thirsty for learning on the scale side, right? How do these big companies function with thousands of employees with such big product scope and innovation and driving a lot of businesses across the world as well, right? The products and services they offer, for example, Apple, right, with the iOS ecosystem, with Meta, their, Instagram and other things, they enable other smaller entrepreneurs, bigger brands to be able to drive value in their organizations. And I love that. Like, that's something I wanted to learn about. And I was fortunate to get an opportunity to work as, as a tech, I would say, chief of staff, as well as, leader in technical program management side, where I was working with the top executives of the organization and really getting access to the strategic side of information. And then I could relate it to the execution. So that's my overall journey with respect to where I started, and then, how those technology and management helped me understand the value. Then I found that I needed scale through my entrepreneurship. And then in the tech, and when I'm in, Silicon Valley, I felt like there was a good mix of all these elements to be able to deliver and drive large scale programs and create value, not just for the end customers, but for the people I work with.
No, it's interesting how, your childhood can frame exactly, your direction in life, and it kind of gives you that little bit of an, I suppose, a eye-opening route into, like you've done into technology and entrepreneurship. It's amazing that, just seeing what your father did and, having that background, and now you're here and you're doing so many amazing things. And I want to go into what you have been doing recently, because you've led some significant projects, including, I think, one of the industry's biggest cloud migration programs for Yahoo, and then so many different high impact technical initiatives as well. What do you think is or has been the defining project in your career, and what were some of the key takeaways there as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think my first defining project in my life was really being an entrepreneur when I didn't really have any big team or support, right? And what that did is it gave me a perspective of appreciating corporates. It's really, really was an eye opener that, how when I was in a corporate role, in London with big organizations, I would take things for granted that, hey, I need to have my laptop ready, that's why I'll go for day one, right? And start functioning and working. But it takes so much to get your laptop ready and for you to deliver your work on day one, all those things, right? In terms of training, in terms of having everything ready for you. So that was the first thing. Just really started appreciating the corporate world a lot more after my own journey, because I realized what it took to drive such a big machine. But I think I would say the bigger turning point was where I got to work with Verizon Media and in the CTO office. That was where I got exposed to leadership, right? The true leaders for this tech world. And that time, I was with a bigger organization like Verizon, who was, which is a Fortune 20 company. And I was running part of Verizon Media Business, part of the CTO office, as well as driving quite a few strategic programs for the company. And one of them happened to be working for, identity side of Yahoo, where I led that platform as a technical program management director. And, Yahoo was the first email I created ever in my life. And that was the gateway to the digital world for me. And few years down, I'm able to work on that platform from the technology side and understood that what it takes to cater to 800 million plus customers, right? How many people, what they do day and night, diversity, people across the geography, globe, trying to make that function. So I'm able to access my email while people around and all the systems are working. So truly started appreciating tech. And then when it came to working in the city office, really started looking at bigger picture, high level initiatives where the company is looking not just 6 months, 1 year from now, what does it look like 5 years from now, right? And then very big focus on the long range planning, the financial side, and then driving that strategy into execution. So gave me a lot of understanding and connectivity so that I could really see what strategies work to bridge that gap.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had a Yahoo email, but I think majority of the world have and still have a Yahoo. So that's a massive project to work on. So what do you think it takes to lead, these large scale transformation technical programs that you have? And, I think it's Yahoo, Verizon. Yeah, what do you think it takes to lead that?
First thing is really thinking from everybody's perspective, Sophie, because when you're in that position or when you're working with different teams and departments, you're not just working with literally your own little team here. You're working with tech, you're working with finance, you're working with, infrastructure team, you're working with, your external stakeholders like your vendors, right? So it needs a perspective for understanding why is everybody in it, what is in it for them, right? That's the first thing. What is it that a CFO is looking for to drive value from this technical program? Why should he or she give that budget to have a new shiny software, right, for our engineers, for example, right? On the other side, right, in terms of strategic decisions, why should we do this program that will give us the benefit to the end customer, right? So the true value is looking at everybody's perspective. And then collaboration. It requires strong cross-functional partnerships and collaboration, sometimes in a group, sometimes one-on-one, and sometimes relationship building. All those elements are very, very key to drive this kind of partnership and work at that level, because here, more than roles and responsibilities, it's the perspective that matters.
And once you have that perspective, you should be able to influence and actually control the project and get everyone doing what they need to do. Could you walk us through your leadership philosophy in these high stake projects? You know,
Yeah, I can talk about maybe more specific that, what are some of the key elements or other principles that I follow for leadership. And I've seen that and I've kind of learned it from different leaders as well. So I would say, Sophie, that goes into four different parts. The first one is, giving unprecedented transparency. And I'll expand on all these. The second one is really empowering the people. Third one is unblocking them to deliver. And fourth one, I feel, is the biggest one, which is having a strong culture for everybody to be in it together, to collaborate and work together. Transparency, it's all about communication, sharing the bigger vision, breaking it down into more realistic pieces for different audience, talking about it to them, right? If it's for engineers, tailor that message for engineering perspective, right? For example, if we are going for tech modernization that I led for Yahoo, talk about what does it mean to modernize, right? That means you're not going to be using your older legacy tools. You can use the latest and greatest technology. You can learn more. You can acquire new skills, and company is going to sponsor it, right? Translate that message in something that they can relate to. The second one is more about empowering people, right? So this is again, you have to. I learned that, right. You have to make people accountable, define more clear roles and responsibilities, and then also work with them with respect to what they are looking for their personal growth as well, right? That's very, very important. That if they do this, this is how they'll grow, or ask their career expectation. And again, that becomes more in team management and people management. But I think for your direct reports or key people, you have to have that kind of connectivity as well to empower them, and at the same time, it's a two-way street that you let them grow as well. And the third one is unblocking them. So while you're empowering them to deliver, your role as a leader is to ensure they're unblocked, right? Be it resources, be it projects, and be it like partnerships, whatever it takes, right? And again, for the right reason, right? You need to evaluate yourself. It's the right reason to empower them or not, or is there another way? That's the third one. And overall, I think fourth, as I said about culture, very, very, very important. I realize you wake up to work in a company because of a great culture, right? Like, and I always think that for myself, that my key principle is that I want people to be excited and to have fun at work as well while delivering these large scale programs or any piece of work that they do, right? They need to love their work, their colleagues, and culture is very important. So build a bond beyond just your work, right? Try and know people as true human beings. But because behind all these, roles and responsibilities we have in organization, we are humans at the end of the
yeah.
day. We all have families, or, or we have our own hobbies or interests, things like that, right? And that's very important to just acknowledge and appreciate things beyond what we see in terms of delivery.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of people forget the human element too when you're managing or, running a program, that there's people are driving that for you. So the more you know about them, the more you can empower them. And then you mentioned communication. Communication is so key for anything you do, and it can drive so much. So I really like how you said around that communication piece, the transparency piece, and then going into empowering, your staff and the people within the programs. I think that's so key. Now, obviously, you haven't just been in the corporate world. You talk a lot about starting your own business and entrepreneurship. Would love to hear more around that, and suppose some of the challenges that you face with that, but also how it kind of led into your corporate world and what areas you took from it to bring you into the corporate world.
I think it was more of a personal incident that led me to solve this. Very close friend's father passed away. And, in India, we have to organize different ceremonies because of the culture, the ceremonies which are there as part of our own culture rituals. And then I wanted a platform where people could get more professionally qualified services for these spirituality services, which are vetted and which are defined in terms of processes, right? Otherwise, it was a very loose industry. Everybody had their own secret sauce, and that's how they worked through it. And that led me to start this venture, shivpuja.com, where I learned not just I would say, about like just working in an organization, but I gained knowledge of a very, very powerful side of, I would say our practice, which I think we have it across the world, astrology. Starting to appreciate the numbers behind humans, right? I learned numerology, I learned astrology, I learned different practices. I learned the power of healing through sound energy, through light energy, through fire ceremony, and things like that. And again, it's a little traditional when I talk about it, but it's applicable, right? What I learned is like everybody is unique, right? We are born with unique traits and very different personalities for a reason, and that's what we call as diversity, so that we can have diversity across different tastes and preferences, different areas, right? So few of the lessons that I want to talk about from this that I got into corporate world is firstly appreciating the differences of opinions, right? Earlier I used to think, oh, why can't Sophie also acknowledge and agree to my point of view? This is how I'm thinking of driving this program or doing this product, right? But then I realized if she's also going to keep thinking like me, we'll just create the same bland product for everybody's looking for that, right? The perspective will come only when Sophie thinks in a different way, right? She's going to add like what she experienced, or, if you're in London or New York, you're going to add your perspective from there, or you came from a different industry, maybe you came from FMCG industry, right? You're going to give perspective from a consumer's habit from that point of view and try and add it there, making our products and services more rich and diverse and enhanced. That was my biggest lesson. I started appreciating the differences of people and opinion than not being happy about it.
I think that's really important. I think a lot of people forget that everyone's different, like you say, and then we all have, different experiences, different backgrounds, different cultures that we come from, and we can add value to conversations, to programs, to anything that there is in the world. A different perspective, I think, will really help businesses grow because, you've got someone who is from New York or from London, and it's just different in every area. I moved from London to New York, and the culture is very different. And having the perspective of the UK to the US, I'm like, oh, we could do this thing different or this different. And I think that's so important. So I really like that. And going into, I suppose, that diversity piece a little bit more, obviously, we talk about women in technology, we talk about women in the corporate world and leadership as well. And we really see that there is a challenge of balancing, I suppose, a high demand career, which you've obviously been through, and also that kind of family responsibility. What has been your experience trying to do everything and juggle all these different, careers, your entrepreneurship, and also the family side of things? And what have you found helpful?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It definitely is. And I'm sure everyone feels that across. And maybe not just women, men also. But I feel like with women, because of our nurturing abilities, and I think, being mothers, one of my mother's friend told me that God has given women the responsibility to reproduce for a reason, right? Because they have that empathy as well. They've given certain elements which kind of make them more nurturing as well, right? And I think it has, and I'll talk about it, it has different implications for corporate as well, how we can distinguish ourselves. But going back to your question, I think, yes, it is a lot right now with, so much technological advancements, specifically, right? AI is coming,
Hmm.
she keeps changing every 6 months. And forget about just tech itself. Let's talk about us as users. There are all these new apps coming. There are all these new tools coming. We got to adapt. We got to learn, right? We got to keep moving. The new alpha, Gen Z or whatever, the Sigma and Skibbity and all those new talks, right?
Yeah.
You gotta work and deal with like your kids and be at that level. You gotta adapt to like what they are thinking of, right? They look at everything very differently, and which is great perspective. For example, I was reading about one of the articles where The Alpha Gen Z generation, they do not want to use credit cards. They want to use Apple Pay or Google Pay because they don't want to be carrying something in their wallet. They just have everything on the phone and then they can just do that directly, right? So it involves a huge change, right? Which means a lot of knowledge, right? You need to keep learning, you need to keep learning, you need to keep learning. There is no shortcut to that, Sophie. Learn through new courses, learn through the people around you, learn about whatever it takes, and develop a skill set, right? I think that's the first thing, so that you feel confident that yes, you are going with the time. Otherwise, everybody faces this thing about being outdated and redundant. We don't want to be in that environment because things are shifting very, very fast. I always tell myself, as a woman, you gotta keep learning, you gotta keep investing to stay confident. And then I would also say, I think strong relationships, very, very important. And initially I used to think like, oh, wider the network, better it is. But I've come to realize, have you 4 to 5 key people, not just, few, like you break it down, have 4 to 5 key people at work, right? Who are truly your supporters, who you can, get coaching from, or, you can also help the other way, whatever they need as well. It shouldn't be just one side. Have those 4 to 5 people, pillar of strength in personal relationship, right? Have people in family as well, maybe not just your direct, probably parents or your spouse, but maybe your cousins, maybe your extended family, just somebody who you could just share perspective from different places and have them be part of your, pillar of support every time you need to balance these 3 different areas for yourself. And have close friends as well, right? Make sure you call them once in a month if, you have long distance friends. Like now that you moved to New York, don't forget your friends in London. Stay connected with them because they are part of like your growing up and really key part. So always maintain that. And I think that gives a very healthy balance. That's another thing, right? So learning, secondly, having pillar of strength, your support, very key partnerships across. And thirdly, I would say take care of your mental health. Enough said about it, but you got to do that. And you can follow different techniques for it, right? For what I do is I ensure that I do some sort of yoga exercise, maybe once or twice a week or 3 times, go for a walk. And one thing I discovered, and I learned that while reading, and I did it through a podcast where they said, when you go for a walk, sometimes you feel like, oh, this is a great time to like catch up with friends or listen to, some video, or I missed something on the work. Let me just like take a call. Give that 15, 20, 30 minutes. Just let your mind not hear or, do anything. Just give it time to like just concentrate on your walking, your breath, and let all the thoughts come in. It's kind of like a walking meditation, which is great because then no one's disturbing you. You are with yourself, and then you get that balance. So I found that very powerful.
I like that. And I have to keep reminding myself to do that because I'm someone who will always try and fill the time like, oh, I'm going for a walk. Let me call my mum or I'm going here. And, I've got 10 minutes. So who can I speak with or what can I do? And also being so busy, you just try to kind of fit everything however you can. But I have tried recently, got like I don't have music on sometimes. Like I'll get in from work and I'll just have half an hour of silence, and I actually am starting to really enjoy it. So I would say for anyone to really try that because it's life changing. Just to be, I suppose, still with your thoughts. But it is difficult though because not everyone wants to do that. A lot of people want to kind of run away from their thoughts, so they always fill it with something. But I think if you can get into that habit, it's going to take you to the next level, I'd say.
Yeah, it's like a mental meditation, while you're awake. You don't have to dedicate certain time out just to like, oh, this is my meditation time, because that piece was not working. But you're absolutely right. This is great that actually, yeah, not speaking or listening to music in the car is also a great way to do that.
No, it's so good. And you've touched upon it a bit. Obviously, you do yoga and you have that silence as well. But how do you really manage that stress and you prevent burnout from having your career, having your, I say hustle around your business as well and having a family? How do you take time to yourself, not just doing yoga, but from that kind of mental perspective? What do you do to get yourself, I suppose, in the right headspace on a day to day?
The first one that I do is, I really enjoy my little morning ritual, right? When I wake up, I just want to stretch a little bit. I've blocked my apps as well for that morning slot because sometimes, you wake up and you just want to catch up on everything quickly. So that's something that's really helped. And it's a very recent thing, last like 6 to 8 months. It's really helping me just to focus on myself with that first 30 minutes in the morning, right? Just getting ready, choosing my clothes, what I'm going to wear, spending time on things that I really like and doing, right? That's just me. And this is before, obviously, my child wakes up so that I have this just time for myself to do my own things, have my cup of coffee or tea, whatever you like, and just dedicate that time to yourself. That's very key. Second one is, I know it's tough, but waking up early. And again, something that I've recently started to enjoy and work, right? Before everyone else wakes up. If you can do that 1 hour before, that's just your time as well. So I kind of like get started for that day. I get the time to myself without having anybody to like, you know, to start doing my tasks, right? And that really gets me going. And then again, I think on a daily basis, not just in the morning, but in the daytime as well, you've got to just take some 10 to 15 minutes out. It could be like maybe feeding the bird or just sitting outside for 10 minutes without doing anything. Leave your phone
Hmm.
apart and just sit out there in silence, enjoy the nature and beauty. And that's it, so these simple things like that.
I know we spoke before we even came on here, and it's lovely and early for you over there. So I appreciate that. It's good to note though that everyone's different. Everyone finds things that work for themselves. And I'll be honest, an early bird for myself. Sometimes I get up early, but sometimes, I'm like, I'd rather go to the gym after work. But I think everything works, differently depending on your scenario, your situation, obviously your family situation as well, and what your priorities are. So I think it's amazing that you have that time in the morning, and hopefully you continue with that and it brings you joy. That's all we can hope for. And we've spoken so much about so many different things right now, but I would love to dive into more around being and what it is to be a female leader. We've spoken again before this around how we feel there is a lack of females within the leadership space. So how can we empower other women to want to become a leader? And what advice would you have for other women who want to aim high and get to the top?
Right. And that's something I think we're all learning, right, in this current environment.
Hmm.
I think first thing, Sophia, I would tell people to learn, learn from each other, learn the skill set, commit and learn. There is no shortcut to that. Everyone talks about imposter syndrome. This is something I learned that it's not just for women, it's for everybody. It's for everyone, right? So to get over that, you have to keep learning. You got to exercise influence. And influence can come from 4 to 5 different ways, right? It's expertise. If you know something very well, it's about just position you are in as well, right? It's about your attitude overall, how you treat people, how you treat a scenario that can help you influence people, projects, and anything. And then I think it's about who you know and who you work with, people who are strong supporters of you. And I think that's something you should nourish as well in terms of relationships. So exercise influence using any of these 3 to 4 categories, right? Uh, and a mix of that too. So that you have the right supporters, you have the right skill set, ensure that you can influence the other side without deliberately having to think, oh, I have to influence. But these are some of the ways you can do that for you to grow in an organization. Then other thing I've found very, very important for women, and that's something I think women really excel in, is multitasking. Actually, one of our core skill sets, while it's a boon, it's a bane as well because we get overwhelmed. And then at the same time, we can probably burn ourselves out. But prioritizing and multitasking for the right things, I think that's a huge, huge plus for women. And we should exercise that in right capacity. It's hard. It's hard to do that, but But it's very powerful if we are able to exercise that, which distinguishes us from other people. So that's something I would definitely highly encourage, that, look at, from technical point of view, look from other side, build relationship with, be it legal or auditing, right? Try and get different cross-functional partnerships and things like that. Don't just work within your team, but also get partnerships, multitask, look at, other perspectives. It's hard for me to even say it, but it's the truth. And I also read it and learned it from a very successful woman leader. Be selfish a little bit about,
Mm.
a career and what you want. And traditionally, women haven't done that, but be selfish. Find your goal and be selfish about achieving it, right? That sometimes you might have to say no to social gatherings or going out or doing certain tasks at work, at home. But ultimately, if you choose a goal, you want to reach there, you got to make choices that will help you reach there. And I'm not saying totally ignore everything. I'm just saying take more conscious choices and be a little selfish to drive your growth and career.
I think a lot of people try to be people pleasers, even myself. And sometimes you have to go, well, what's right for you? And whether it's a career or a job that isn't fulfilling what your needs or your end goals, you have to think about that. And don't just be like, oh, I've got a team, I don't want to leave because of my team. You've got to think about yourself. So I think being selfish is really useful, and you've got to remind yourself of that, because I normally forget that. And do you feel like there's any specific moments where you felt like being a female leader has really provided a unique perspective or advantage in the corporate workspace?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think I talked about nurturing, right? And that by default gives us empathy because we can understand different perspective. We can really see that how everybody comes from a, different background, organization, and women I've found are a lot more empathetic. And then they lead with a smile. At least for the female leaders I've seen, they smile a lot more, which is what I found very pleasing. And I happen to be working with a great, tech leader who's, a woman CTO. And, the only thing that encouraged me while talking about the toughest topics was her smile, her being so empathetic to everybody in the team. That was the whole difference about when I first experienced working with a woman leader, and very, very different feeling that I got. So that is the number one thing for me. Also, I felt like, as a woman, because we multitask, that's again our sort of a superpower, being organized, Sophie. I feel women are a lot more organized in general because we have to do so many different elements. And I'm not trying to, say that we are, superior over X or Y or something like that. But it just naturally comes to us to stay organized, to think of everybody, our family, our friends, our parents, our spouses, our or distant people around. And as you said, people pleaser, but that comes by default, right? So we are used to like ensuring everybody's perspective and stay organized to ensure everybody's inclusive as well. So those are a few things which I feel women are, have naturally been given this talent, and we should exercise that more, thinking from work perspective, right?
You touched upon there around the empathy piece, being within a business, and we go back to what you were speaking about at the start around thinking about other people and different perspectives, and that empathy comes in there, and then being able to multitask and think about, oh, well, this team thinks this, and this person thinks this, and then how to piece it all together to hopefully come together and have a good result. So I like the empathy piece. I think that's something that we can lean on as women. If you have that skill set, lean into it, because as a leader, I think that just empowers you more and more. And you've worked within the technical space for a long time. What advice would you give to those transitioning from the technical roles into more of an executive leadership role?
The biggest one is find your right partners. And that at that level, Sophie, it's just not about what you know, it's collaboration. It's all about collaboration. It's about, you know, making sure you have good relationship with your core peers. You have to invest in it. You have to take out time to do that, right? You have to personally, especially amongst, and I'm just giving advice more because I feel that's applicable just with your core peers. You should invest the time to just get to know. Sometimes it's just coffee chats, right? Don't talk work. Just have coffee chats or ask about like generally how their day has been. beyond work. Spend time learning about them, learning where they come from, so that you can be collaborative together as a team to achieve organization's goals, right? That's the biggest thing. You got to think of the organization as the end result, and then how you can partner and collaborate, find those key people, build relationship with them, and then try and drive that bigger picture from, by seeking help and collaborating together, and also what you can deliver for them, right? It's not just one-sided. What they can do for you, what you can do for them as well. Help them out, as much as you can with whichever aspects of life you can. That's very very important, and I think again supporting each other out as well. One woman should fix another woman's crown. It's very very important, because if we're not going to collaborate and be together, it's going to be hard for seeking partnership from others as well, right? Be there for each other. Very very important, I would say. And again, these are not just, I'm talking about technical things, but more interpersonal, and very, very important to do so, because behind every big piece of architecture, tech, whatever you want to call it, there's a real human behind it. And they come from different perspectives.
Amazing. So basically, everything comes back down to communication, collaboration, finding your allies, that networking. So if you want to promote up, get to the top, it is around speaking to people. It's people at the end of the day. So yes, we can be technical and, we can focus on our development work or infrastructure, whatever it may be. But then actually at the end of the day, to be a leader, you've got to be able to lead people, influence people, and figure out how to communicate within the technical landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you got to show up, you got to show your face, show the real human behind it, right? And let people connect to you. One of the powerful things is, AMAs. You can hold AMAs where you can give the opportunity to people to ask direct questions to you. And they can then find that you're more approachable. They can always message you on the side, or you create a channel or whatever works for you, a survey where you can really give them a way to access you as a human, also as a leader, and understand their perspective. Sometimes you have to change your strategy by understanding what the other person's thinking. You may think your message goes like this, but when you hear from somebody on the other side, that's where you deliver that message. You might see a different perspective.
And what do you think are the essential skills or mindsets that people that are wanting to come up through the ranks should cultivate at this point?
Networking, find forums where you don't know people and go there. You never know who you meet. You never know who your next ally is, where your next thing is. And a lot of women just shy away from it. I see very few women in networking events, but turn up, show up. In the first few times, you'll find it awkward and tough, because you're going in an unknown sort of environment and just stretching outside of your comfort zone. But it really adds value. It also creates a set of peers who are probably in the same boat, right? Meet people in those events. Very, very important for women to be in the networking area as well, not compromise on that. So yeah, I would say that's probably very, very important to really show yourself out there. And the other one is obviously learn those skills, invest in seminars, invest your time and even money sometimes to learn financial skills, to learn about, any other side hustle also, right? Like grow that as a hobby, if anything else. Women are so good at a lot of creative things as well. Why not? Do that, exercise that.
I think women, we often shy away from, I suppose, going out our comfort zone sometimes, but also putting ourselves out there. I think the more we put ourselves out there and have more conversations, speak to more people, network with more people, you'll be surprised how many opportunities fall on your lap, and how many
Yeah.
doors open as well, especially if you're within a corporate business. Go and speak to that person you want to speak with, and you never know what's going to happen. I think that's really important. So we're kind of putting everything back, communication, networking, the empathy piece, thinking about other people and really leveraging that as a female is going to empower you to step up into, like we say, your growth and, your purpose in life, which is really important. So it's been amazing to go through your journey, hear about your background, and yeah, definitely some exciting things that you've been on. What's the next thing for you? what are you looking to do in the future?
Sophie, my biggest principle is that whatever I do, I need to drive value for my customers, and I need to have my own personal learning as well. So where can I fit in to drive, value from strategy to execution? I love both pieces of it and more in large scale environment. And I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. And also specializing in certain technology. I love how AI world is going. I know it's really hyped up right now, but I think it's really simplifying lives as well. That's an area which I'm very, very passionate about. I worked extensively in the cloud technology as well. So I learned a lot about infrastructure as well as, the efficiencies that we gain with it. So I'm looking at something where I can combine value, efficiencies, as well as the new skill set of AI, that how it can empower people. So how can we create products and services to drive value for our customers and change lives for good?
Yeah, AI is going to be an interesting one. And like we say, it's a key topic for most businesses right now. So I'm intrigued to see how the world changes. And I think it already has, actually. It's been interesting to see a lot of these businesses utilize AI and, actually get results from it. But I think we're only skimming the water on that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So really appreciate your time today. My final question for you, and not to put you on the spot, but what is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
This is a tough one. It's like really admitting like of my gaps. I would say as a woman, I think I've learned like, having a goal to be financially independent is very exciting, and I've always been, but I never had like good investing goals or financial goals. If I were my younger self again, I would give that to myself to, really have some financial goals to drive myself towards that, because I think those are something which will excite me too. And investing, right? Because it's super important to keep investing, because you never know what future goes to and things like that. So it's very important to be independent, to be confident, and to like stand on your own feet.
The investing part is something that not everyone learns. And especially as a female, it's not like we go, oh, great, I'm going to talk about money. And you don't really talk about it. Or I never did growing up. And then, you get thrown in the world of earning money. And it's like, what can I do with this money? So I think investing is so important. And the more you can invest in yourself, but also invest your money and become, I suppose, like you say, stand on your own 2 feet, it empowers you even further. So that's really insightful. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for, sharing your insights. It's been a really good chat for even just myself. I'm going to take so many key points away from this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sophie. I also wanted to mention that, this is, when I talked about hobby and doing a side thing, you're doing such a great job to pass this message on and empower so many women. Really, really, really appreciate that and admire what you do. And keep going, Sophie. We need more people like you to drive that and create women leadership models. So thank you so much for spending time with me. And and I look forward to staying in touch with you. Thanks a lot.